Hello, it's Adam Morrison. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGillivray Environmental. I know a thing or two about excellence, and that's exactly what you'll find with Kip McGillivray and his team. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality results. With years of experience and expertise, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, asphalt paving for residential and commercial properties, excavation, and even environmental remediation. So why wait? Reach out to Kip McGillivray Environmental today by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam Morrison, and experience the difference McGillivray Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGillivray Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs.
Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spocast. The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe.
Yeah. Woo. Man, forget this job, dog. Yeah. Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make
Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 1 of The Perimeter, presented by McGillivray Environmental. It's good to be back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be back. This is gonna. I'm really looking forward to the season.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover. Obviously, we took a lot of time off when there's no games, so that makes sense, and it's glad to be back on the mic. This episode, kind of a season preview as far as personnel, new players, returning players.
Mm-hmm.
We probably won't talk much about the upcoming schedule. We'll save that till it gets closer.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to talk about Kraziness and the Kennel. I went down and watched practice. I like to do that as well. There's a ton of new guys, new talent, returners, obviously. I think what their impact is going to be and what their expectations should be, and what mine are as, somebody who covers the team. And then the biggest news of all, Gonzaga joining the Pac-12. The MAC-12, Mountain West, Pac-12, basically
Right.
now, which I'll get into it deeper. I think is I'll go over the pros and cons and devil's advocate a little bit of that, and dispel some of the rumors or some of the myths about conference realignment. I'm no expert, but I know more than 90% of the other people, if that makes sense.
Totally, yes, it makes absolute sense.
So it's going to be fun covering that stuff. So Kraziness, Kennel, always fun. Everybody's looking forward to it. I've talked in years past that as a player, as you get older, you obviously enjoy the excitement, but you're just kind of out there just not to get hurt,
right?
Kind of go through your reps. The veteran guys, it's kind of like a preseason game where sometimes you can overlook at some of the stats if some of the veterans don't play great, and people sometimes freak out. It's like, dude, sometimes guys are just getting a sweat, and you know what I mean, and they're showing it in practice, and they're just trying to get others involved. But I thought it was exciting. Dusty Stromer won the 3-point contest, which was fantastic. I heard he had a great summer. We'll get into the personnel, like I said, but I thought just overall the event was fantastic. Sean McFarnham did a good job emceeing. He's kind of our go-to de facto voice of the ZAGS on a national level. And
I was actually really confused when he was like, I didn't know who it was. I was just like, who's this guy emceeing? They didn't really announce him that well. And then I messaged my buddy. I'm like, who is this guy? And he's like, it's Sean Farnham. And he's the like the unofficial mascot of Gonzaga. He loves it. So and I was like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he does a good job, and I think people like him. He's like, well, guy, I've known Sean for about 5-6 years now, just broadcasting and see him on the road, and obviously at home games. So I think that was a cool little piece, cool addition. Obviously, we're top 5, I think, in the APs or the
top 5, top 8. It depends on which one you're reading. I actually forgot to grab those, but preseason top 10, top 5,
top 5, top 10. So there's a lot of expectations, as per usual. A lot of good returning players coming back. So obviously a lot of excitement. With every beginning of every season, there's expectations at this program, and that doesn't need to be said. I think people listening to this podcast understand that now. But it is cool that every year there is we can make a deep run. You know what I mean? Like it is special to have that, because a lot of programs don't, and I've looked around and peeked in at some of other programs that are good programs, opening nights, and it's kind of dead in there, and you feel kind of bad. You know what I mean? It's just Gonzaga's done a good job of getting the students hyped. I think they pair it with parent weekend or whatever, or like something like that. So it helps that the parents can come and watch and stuff like that. And I just think it's a cool thing for the community. I'd be curious if they ever moved it to arena to get more people in there. But obviously you want it in your own building. It's a lot better presentation. But think about it. You think you probably sell out the arena.
Oh, easily.
If you did that, you'd probably have to give a little bit longer production, not a better, but like we need to be on the floor for maybe an hour and a half and dunk contest and all that stuff. But
I was going to ask, I was going over the history of it, and was there Kraziness in the Kennel when you were at school?
Yeah, they just started it. So it used to be Midnight Madness.
That's right.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
And everybody was, literally at midnight. And then I think throughout the whole country, I think it created more problems just because kids are probably drinking at that time to go into the event.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so... but it was cool. Remember on ESPN, they used to have Midnight Madness and all that stuff, and they broadcast some of them. And it was a little bit different, obviously, back then too, with no transfer portal and all that stuff. So the longevity in teams were, this is their third year of this class. They're pretty good. They got second in the, so there was a little bit different excitement. I think now it's kind of you're looking to see if what the new players look like and all that stuff because there's so much movement. But we did Kraziness in the Kennel. I think we started it. I think my first year, we did it all the way through. So I'm pretty sure we had it in the old gym. Kennel, and then I know for sure the last 2 years we had it, but it was a little bit different. They didn't do the, like run down from this crowd and all that stuff. Like, we just kind of went out there and scrimmaged. And the biggest difference, I think, from recent years past and these is the dunk contest is not very good anymore because we haven't had very many leapers. Like the last years of Rui, BC, Brandon Clark, that's when I was like, oh, as a dunk contest. Now it's like
there actually was no dunk contest.
Because we don't have any like leapers, and that's not a knock on the guys, but also like I think everybody's desensitized a little bit to the dunk. Just even if you watch the NBA dunk contest, guy does like a windmill that would have got a 50 like when Dominique Wilkins was doing it. Now they're like, oh, that's stupid. And you're like,
right.
Wait a second. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's part of it because it's kind of like, cool, man. You did a reverse. And like 20 years ago, like, holy cow, man, this guy's an athlete.
Right.
So overall, I thought it was a great, great event. They get the fans excited. And again, it's cool for the new players, especially to, experience that, kind of get the jitters out. I know it's not a real game, but you're playing under lights, you're playing with real refs, playing with people watching and all that stuff. We used to, there used to be open gym All-Americans and then non-open gym All-American, guys that played better. And when the lights came on and you'd kind of find that out, and your first taste was during Kraziness in the Kennel. I thought their backcourt looked good. Nemhard and Hickman played solid. Their numbers don't jump off the page, but you're just, like I said, you're looking at kind of what their body language is like. So they're setting guys up, and I'm not concerned about them. I was really impressed with Ajayi, the kid from Pepperdine, all league player. Kind of not a weird fit is the wrong way to say it, but an unusual fit because he's kind of a 18-foot and in player back to the basket, which he was for Pepperdine, kind of an ISO. So I was curious to see, okay, is this going to work? I know it's just one thing, but I went and watched practice, and then obviously at the Kraziness in the Kennel, like I thought he looked really good. He's going to give us a different look for mismatches, especially because he's like a 3-4. Kind of has a unique story. Wasn't even recruited out of high school, and then went to Pierce Community College. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not like a basketball power for JUCO at all. That's almost like you're just going there to play, and whatever happens, happens. And he got found by some of the local Seattle guys, and Coach Romar picked him up because he still has roots there, and we're obviously gonna be the beneficiary of it. But I thought he looked fantastic. Like I said, he just gives us a different look. I thought Graham was solid. He's another guy I'm not worried about. I'm not really going to go into too heavy on the older guys' performances in this because, like I said, they're going to get plenty of minutes, and I think they're going to play well. I was more looking at the Khalif battle.
Khalif battle, yeah.
Khalif battle from Arkansas. big time transfer portal, good shooter. I watched him in practice, had a good practice the day I went and watched, banged in 3 or 4 threes, was very vocal, good defender, kind of an undersized wing, but can get a shot off, but he's going to be your kind of space the floor, down screens, double teams come, get to the open window, knock down a shot, can rip against, closeout and stuff like that. Thought he looked all right. He was 1 for 4, but he got to the line 6 for 6, had 5 rebounds. Obviously an older kid, so you're not worried about the, like nerves or anything like that. You're just looking for fit, and I thought he looked the part. This one is going to be hard for me to pronounce. Ismailia Dieng. You got to help me on this one.
I do, yeah.
The kid from Real Madrid.
Oh yeah, Ismaila
Diane. So I'm going to call him Diane.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought he didn't have a great game field goal wise. Was 0 for 6. Did have 5 rebounds. When I watched practice, taken away from the Kraziness Kennel, I thought he looked great. Big, long, athletic, kind of raw, but could move and gives us a rim protection aspect.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see where he fits in that trio of bigs, because obviously Graham Ike was fantastic last year, should have a great senior campaign. Braden Huff, I think, is poised for a breakout year, fantastic year last year, just super solid, can score the ball, always liked his game. I like lefties. I like he can shoot the 3, all that stuff. And then Ben Gregg moved himself into the starting lineup and earned that, and it's his senior year. So curious to see where Dieng, sorry, again, I'll get it right, but where he moves into that. Are we going to play 2 big, 4 bigs?
Yeah.
And kind of get away from the traditional, what we've done in probably the last 6, 7, 8 years of 3 bigs where you can all play them 22 to 30 minutes. You know what I mean? You kind of keep everybody happy. But he gives us a rim protection aspect. Not that Graham can't do that, but you want to keep your best post presence and scoring from foul trouble sometimes too. And that's part of when I mean rim protection is who's, protecting the rim. And if that's putting your main scorer inside in peril with a foul, like sometimes you have to change up your coverages and all that stuff. So I'll be curious to see how his development goes. Maybe he's a redshirt candidate. Don't know. Haven't asked anybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen, or if it's like, hey, you should redshirt this year, or you're not going to play very much this year. Like we've seen in the past, wait your term. It's a development year, but we're going to keep you ready if we need it. And then when Graham's gone, it's going to be, your opportunity to be that same type of role, big guy inside and duck in and score and jump hooks and all that stuff. I really liked the Braden Smith, the transfer. Was it Colgate?
Yep. Colgate.
Yeah, Colgate is from Seattle Prep. So obviously we've seen him before, had a terrific year in that conference. I think he was freshman of the year. He's going to redshirt this year, obviously with Nemhard and Nolan Hickman being the lead guards. I think it's a fantastic decision. I liked him in practice when I went and watched, had great energy. A little bit undersized for my liking, but it doesn't mean he can't play, but it's, there's some limitations that are natural with that, but I think he can play through that. Like his quickness, can score the ball, makes good decisions. And like I said, very vocal. So I was impressed, went to practice like, oh, and good for you having the guts to redshirt. Not a lot of people like hearing that, especially at a good, a year before and you transfer and it's like, no, hey man, work on your game, learn from these 2 veterans, and then you're going to get the keys and you're going to, have a chance to play multiple years as lead guard for one of the best teams in the country and one of the best places to play guard in the country.
Yeah.
So I got to give kudos to that kid for being able to do that. The Emmanuel Incente.
Yeah. Innocente
from Tarleton State transfer. I thought he looked good as well. Was 3 for 7, knocked down a big 3 to kind of win the scrimmage or whatever. Kind of a defender type. He's going to be curious to me where he fits in again on the wings situation. Because we just talked about Battle. He's a veteran, a big time player. Dusty Stromer, I'll talk about him in a second. Obviously started last year, had a decent freshman year, but I've heard has had a really good summer. And I don't just say that just to say it, but I've heard good things from people. If I haven't heard it, I'll never say I heard good things. I'll never tell you if it's really bad, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But also, yeah, like he's going to be, a much better force on the perimeter. So I'm curious to see where he fits in that kind of role of wing defender. He's kind of a slasher, capable shooter, but it doesn't look completely pure. That's not a knock. Just, I think he's more of a slasher defender type wing player. He looks solid. And then June looked all right, in my opinion. Again, I think he's a good player. I'm curious to see where he fits in.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock. I'm just curious to see if if he moves into that slot of playing the 4 maybe a little bit, or is he going to, take some of those minutes off the bench from some of the wing players. So I'm curious to see where and how that fits in with the whole scheme of thing. But overall, like I said, I thought Kraziness was it was good. Obviously it looked clean. It looked fun. And I thought the guys played pretty good. A lot of fouls in that game, 16 fouls.
Yeah, it was very physical.
Yeah, it gets like that. And it's usually a product of playing in camp, playing all week together or months together, and kind of getting away with stuff. And then the real refs come out and you're like, oh, I can't put 2 hands on a driver at 30 feet. That's a foul. So I'm sure that was addressed with Coach Few and the staff. But, overall, I thought it was well done and well put together, and I'm excited for the season. The biggest thing talking about all these new guys, and then obviously Dusty Stromer, who I think he's had a good weight room summer too. That's just at first glance. I saw him at practice. He wasn't playing that day. He had a minor shoulder injury, but just he's like, oh, that looks like he gained 15 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, oh, good job. Because sometimes it's harder than you think, and sometimes it's body type, but like you can get stronger without putting on a ton of weight, but he looks like he's put on, some weight. So I'm just curious to see where and how much playing time there is for some of these guys. Cause let's, we got to go through it really. I mean, so Nembhard's going to play probably 30 minutes at least. Let's say 35. Okay? Yeah. Nolan Hickman's going to play 30, 35. No question. Other than blowouts. So their averages might creep to 28, but like in big games, it's going to be 20, 30, 35 plus. And sometimes it's 38 for our guards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think Ajayi is going to play a ton on the wing. So you go him, Stromer on the wings, and then you go Hickman, Nembhard in the backcourt, and then you probably go EK, and then you bring Ben Gregg off, or you go Ben Gregg, Ajayi first one off the bench, Stromer, and then Braden Huff is the third big, kind of like last year.
Yeah.
But then where does Battle play?
Yeah, exactly.
Because then I again, this is not like a stir the pot thing, and we're not about that on this podcast. I think some people would want us to be. But I like my job, and I like having relationships, and I just think it's kind of cheap too to stir the pot. But there's a lot of guys on this team, man, and a lot of like transfers and guys with expectations. Now you don't placate to that in a certain deal, but also you have to kind of honor some of the things that you said. Not that we've not done that, but like, what I'm saying? Like if somebody's coming in, they have some level of expectations of when to play or how much they're going to play. Now that is always earned on the court. I know that sounds so cliche, but if you go in there and be like, I want to play 25 minutes, I guarantee they're like, well, it'll happen if you earn it, because they're not going to just guarantee somebody. But there's going to be some hurt feelings, I think, this year, or there needs to be some red shirts. That's just my personal opinion, because again, you go with the Italian kid from Tarleton State, Ajayi, like I just mentioned, and then Battle. Okay, so those are 3 really good wing players with proven, have proven it. It's not just high school kids.
Yeah.
And then you got Dusty Stromer as a top 40 pick coming back. And then you got your two point guards, and usually Nolan's been playing off the ball. So he's kind of like your 2-3, your scoring shooting guard. So I don't know, man. Like, and it's a great problem to have, but it's really curious for, honestly, this year at the start, kind of seeing, especially in the first preseason game, and then going to that November 4th, I believe, is against Baylor, what the rotations look like. And Coach Few's always figured that out. This is a year with a lot of good players. Not that we've never had good players, but the transfer stuff, it's crazy, man. Like, I'm really curious.
I mean, I feel like Gonzaga was really good last year, and we really only lost Anton.
Yeah, and he's terrific.
And he's but
that's it.
But that's it. And you go down this list, and it's just like, even when you like, I mean, June looked good, but like, I mean, does he? Maybe he redshirts.
I know.
You know, like,
I know. I'm curious, and June's a good player.
Yeah.
Didn't play very much last year, and I think that was a product of just, not being ready for this level. But he's athletically ready. So you're like, you got to assume, okay, after a year of playing at this speed and kind of learning the system, like maybe he moves into that. But then you're like, I just mentioned those 3 other guys, and he's kind of a wing.
Yeah.
And then again, what about Ben Gregg, who's like a glue guy and a crowd favorite, and he's a senior and he's earned it. And he's actually, he's not just a hustle guy. Like, he's productive. He can score. You know what I mean? Like, he gives you that, and he's highly efficient. Like, he's a guy that probably gets 6 shots a game and probably makes 4. Right. Maybe he bangs in 2 threes, and you look up and he has 11 points and 8 rebounds, and you didn't run a play for him. Right. And that helps you win games, and he guards some of their best players. You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff. So you can't take him off the floor. And then Braden Huff inside's got to get more touches, in my opinion. And that's not, and Graham's going to get his, and Graham's terrific, and he should get his, but Braden's highly efficient too. So I'm just, it's one of these years, man, where I'm just sitting there as a, kind of outside looking in, but obviously close to the program. I'm like, who are you going to play, and how is that going to work? Is it going to be week to week? Because obviously you want to build continuity with your rotations and your, minutes. How do you keep guys, I hate that word to say happy, because there's going to be ups and downs. It's not always roses, man. It's at any level of sports and life in general. Like, there's going to be ups and downs, but there's going to be some guys that probably won't play very much that have expectations that they were going to. And that's crazy.
Well, in the next 3 weeks before, the big Baylor game, obviously they'll probably have some secret games, or a secret game against, someone like a Michigan State. What does the team do during this time to kind of figure that out?
That's a good, obviously that stuff gets developed during the kind of the summer, and then it moves to obviously the fall camp. And you have an idea as a staff going into the next year. People can fluctuate, but there's usually if you're good, you're going to have 4 or 5 pretty locked in minute wise, or at least 3. And I just mentioned the 3 for sure's, no question, is our backcourt, and Graham Ike going to play a ton. Okay. And then you're probably going to go, Ben Gregg kind of moves into that a little bit, not a ton, but more than less.
Yeah.
I don't know, 22 minutes to 25. So then you go again, where's Ajayi play? And where's Khalif Battle play?
Yeah.
Or Coach Few obviously knows this, and the staff knows this. Maybe you play 10 deep and change it up a little bit this year. And you play 10 where guys are playing a little bit less minutes than before, but you can play more aggressive defensively. You can do different things. You can be more aggressive in the foul situation. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to worry about foul pressure. The counter to that is, I know Fewy and I myself in basketball in general, I always call it 7.5 guys by the end of the year. You know what I mean? Where you're kind of playing 7s, maybe 8, but you know what I mean? Your 8th is kind of used sparingly or used in spot minutes, and you're just kind of letting your guys roll. And if they're healthy, they're going to be in rhythm. They don't have to look over their shoulder. You know what I mean? All those things matter. So I'm just, it's a really interesting preseason, and in terms of personnel. We've always had good players. We've always had a wealth of talent, but with transfers coming in and guys that are, all league players and, seasoned veterans, basically, it's curious to me, and I'll be really fascinated as the season gets closer, especially these first preseason games. I think we just scheduled one against USC October 26th. I'd be curious to watch that and see how we figure it out. I know I'm rambling a little bit on this stuff, but I just keep going okay, where does Ajayi fit? And you know what I mean? There's battle. And then what about Stromer, and who's gets the first crack at it? And then how long, if they don't play quote unquote well or super productive, does the other guy get a shot? And that's curious to me, because I know Fewy and the staff have always done a good job of managing personnel and managing rotations. That's a real skill. You don't want to buck that system, because it's worked. So, first preseason games, I'm gonna have my antennas up more than I normally do. Usually, it's kind of like, okay, maybe just one or two guys, see how they fit in. Now it's like, well, there's 5. How are they gonna fit in?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not to get dark, but if Steele didn't get hurt, and God bless the kid, that would have been another one. Like, what the heck? And I feel terrible for the kid. He tore his Achilles, I believe. Coming off an ACL last year, hasn't played in a game here. I hope his mental stays up and he can recover and at least play a season for us, just out of dreams and all that stuff. Like, you just feel terrible for the kid. But that's a common injury after an ACL, because apparently I had an ACL, but apparently your body naturally compensates to one side after an injury, and sometimes it puts pressure and strain. It's a theory, but it's probably right.
Yeah.
When you injure, you injure your left lower back, and then your right side starts to hurt eventually because you're putting more pressure. You know what I mean? It's just like that.
Yeah, no, totally. As a runner, I have had a knee problem on my right, and so I favor my left, and then my left starts really hurting. Yeah.
It's crazy how the body works.
Yeah.
But, him not being out is obviously a blow. And you just feel bad for the kid. But I don't know, man. I don't envy Coach Few as far as decision making this season. It's just kind of crazy how many guys he has now. They're gonna have to figure that out. But I'd rather have this problem than going, well, shit, who's coming off our bench? You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, and you don't say it like that, but sometimes there's been a few years where it's like, oh, this might not be good.
I feel like last year was probably a pretty good example. Like, I mean, we were always.
Yeah, they always say depth. That was our whole
and
part of our deal the whole last year.
And now we have it, and
now I'm complaining about it.
no, but it's like, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, obviously. Yeah. I mean, for the players, but I mean, when you have a championship mindset of like the goal isn't to win the WCC anymore.
No,
the goal is to win a national championship, and does that come into play when you're as a player? I imagine, like, if you're as a role player, like,
yeah, I think obviously you're gonna have to buy in, and they bring guys that usually buy in 95% of the time.
Yeah.
You're always gonna have some weird situations, and sometimes as a coach or manager, whatever you want to call it, you can understand players' frustrations, and it's not like they're disruptive, but if they have a little bit of a tiff and a little bit, they're not just like super happy-go-lucky, like, you can understand that as a human being. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's all right to be like, yeah, hey, I'm here, but like, this is not perfect, but I'm not disruptive. But you need to be happy that you're not playing. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I think part of that, I guess, is like, who's going to buy into their role and understand that, because it is a battle for minutes, man. It just is. And, it'll be really curious to see how that all plays out, because we have such a talented team that there's gonna be some hurt feelings, I think, and I mean that in a nice way. That's the only way to describe it. There's gonna be some hurt feelings and some kids that probably expect to play a little bit more, but it's just a number thing. Doesn't mean you're not good. But you kind of roll with what you know, especially, and then if those guys take advantage of that opportunity, it's hard to yank it back from them. So those first preseason games are going to be more important for me and I think the team than they have been in the past. If that makes sense. Obviously, you want to go through all your stuff and get a rhythm and stuff like that. But now it's like, do we play 10 guys? We haven't played 10 guys in a long time. And usually sometimes we start season playing 10 guys and then it magically goes to 7.5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's 3 guys that are not very happy. So Coach Few, staff, good luck. I'll be obviously watching and calling the games, but I'll be trying to figure out how to navigate noticing other players' frustrations when I call the games too. You know what I'm saying? Because like, well, that guy's not happy, but do we say this out loud or not? You know what I mean? So it'll be fun, but I'm really looking forward to obviously the roster. I think our returners are terrific. Like I mentioned, EK, the 2 guards, Ben Gregg, bunch of seasoned veterans. Those guys will help. And then see how everybody else fits in. But yeah, overall, it was a really good transfer portal year for us, which sounds funny. And then a really good recruiting year. And I think our future is bright, and we have a legitimate chance to get a 1 seed, 2 seed. You know, and I've talked about it in the past. I think it matters to a certain level, but I think sometimes it gets overplayed, especially here in Spokane. If we don't get a 1 seed, or I think we were a 3 last year, weren't we? Yeah. I thought it was fine.
It was great. I mean, I think we were happy to get a 3, and I think, I just don't think it
matters. It more matters on the matchup,
right?
You know, and like you don't want to always play the juggernaut. So sometimes you can, like, if you get a 5 seed, then you can somehow navigate. You know, that's better than just playing a juggernaut like we've had the last 2 years in the tournament. So, you know, overall, I think this summer was a productive one from everything I've heard, watching practice and then going to the Kraziness Kennel. Thumbs up usually is a thumbs up. There's rarely a thumbs down. Negative Yelp review on the team. But our guys look good. They look strong. They look quick. I love going to their practices. I'm lucky enough to be able to go. I took my son, and just how much they talk and fly around and excited, you know, and I coach my son's team, and we're always talking about, you know, your son plays too, is being happy and slap each other's hands, encouraging, you know what I mean? I'm always talking about talk, you know, and like it's a skill, but it's fun to go in and see it at work because it's just a great vibe. And it's not like it's not love fest and guys are getting yelled at and stuff like that, but it's also encouraging, and they get up and down and they have fun. You know, so it's a really good, I guess, vibe team as well. Good kids, always are, but sometimes there's a little bit different personalities. These seems like good ones. Yeah. And I'm just looking forward to it. Let's get into the next topic. That's the big one. Yeah. PAC-12.
Going to the PAC-12 in 2026.
Yeah. So it's 2. So I want to make sure we're correct. It's this season and next. So we have 2 more years in the WCC, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so 2 more seasons. So there's going to be, if you think about it, not pressure. I think pressure is the wrong word, but it's some, you know, added anxiety to kind of win these last 2. Yeah. Right. Especially after last year where St. Mary's, God bless them, won it both ways, right? Did they win the regular season and they won the tournament. Yeah. So I think there's going to be some like, hey guys, let's these last 2 years, let's two more WCC banners up and you know, exit out in a good way. It's kind of curious that it happened the way it did. Obviously, Seattle U joined and Grand Canyon, and as far as value add, I think Grand Canyon was a good one. As far as athletics, they try to win. They've been to the NCAA tournament. We beat them 2 years ago, and then they beat St. Mary's in the arena this year. And, and everybody was. Yes. I wasn't at the game, obviously. I was calling ours, but everybody was like, "Dude, this is so awesome!" Everybody's cheering for Grand Canyon. You know what I mean? Like it was like a de facto home game for them, and they're probably like, "What the heck?" But
that's funny.
It was fun. It was funny, like just hearing like people send videos out to me and like literally legit booing, like when St. Mary's came out. You know, it was just funny. And I've told you the respect I have for St. Mary's, but it was like, oh, you're still in Spokane, right? You know what I mean? So just so you know, right. But as far as the conference, and I got to be careful how I word this, but the Big 12 talk has been going on for 2 years.
Yes.
And I always thought that was pipe dream is the wrong way to say it, but I always thought it was a harder task to overcome because we don't have football.
Right.
Okay. And I don't care what anybody says, football pays all the bills for a lot of college athletic programs. So not having that is really hard to go into a meeting room and put your hat out and go, can we get a full share? Why? And you can't blame the other schools for saying that. Like, why? Like, you don't have to spend all this money that we have to spend on football. It's millions of dollars just to fund a program, period. Right. The counter to that real quick would be like, well, we're not a state school, so you guys get some free money too. Okay. So we got to raise ours. So that's a fair counter to that argument. But I thought the Big 12 would be great. It would be one of the best basketball conferences. I think it is the best basketball conference. But I just didn't think we fit because we don't have football. And I just never thought that the rest of the schools that, obviously I don't know what their CBA looks like, but I'm sure there's a vote that has to happen, a certain amount. All those schools would just be like, well, why? Why would we give up 5% altogether or whatever?
Yeah, for sure.
To you guys when you don't have football. So I always thought I thought Chris Stanford, the AD's done a good job of getting us to this point, and I thought he was ahead of the curve than kind of the local media and us in general. You know what I'm saying, on moving conferences. But I always thought that was a hard bargain for him to try to convince the Big 12,
right? Just
because we don't have football. And so when the Pac-12 news started coming out, that made total sense. Multiple reasons. One, I think the WCC just cannot provide the TV revenue that we need yearly. College sports has changed. I hate getting on the internet or just whatever and seeing it. It's all about greed. Kind of. Like, money makes the world go round. Okay, let's just be honest. Okay, you got to pay bills. Okay, and then if you want to go further, and this is not just Gonzaga, this is just in college athletics in general. Like all the Olympic sports, right? You call them the Olympic sports, the golfs, the swimmings, the rowings, just all the great sports that these kids work just as hard. They deserve full rides or half ride, whatever they get. Put in just as much time, terrific athletes, nothing against them. They don't make any money. Okay. Right. So how do you pay for them? You pay for them by getting revenue. Okay. And so part of the revenue is going to a bigger conference and getting TV deals, and you get a check every single year or a revenue share every single year. And it's basically just solvency is what it really is. The example I always used when people ask me about it, and this is the last 2-3 years when it started to really pick up, should we leave the WCC? And some people are like, why would you break the traditions of that? And I get that. Like I get the nostalgia of it a little bit, but I'm like, UCLA, there was a USA Today article when they went to the Big Ten, them and USC. And don't quote me exactly on the number, but I think I'm close. They were $90 million in debt in their athletic department.
Wow. Yeah.
You have to go.
Yeah.
That's why they moved, because the Pac-12 at the time didn't have a great media rights deal. So if you go to the Big Ten, SEC, you get a check every year for 20 to 30 million bucks. Here you go to start your year from TV revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not do it? And that funds all the other sports that don't make a dime. And then they're not terrible sports. I'm not saying that. They need to be around. Title IX needs to be around. There needs to be opportunities for all those athletes.
100%.
But how do you pay for them? And so that's part of the reason why we've been looking to moving. Nothing against the WCC. I think, what's his name? Stu Jackson is the new president or the commissioner or whatever you want to call it. He's a former NBA guy, been in the NBA 20 years, knows what he's doing. A brilliant dude, great contract guy. He's trying to hold that league together, but it's just hard when you say, like, what's our TV rights look like? You know, I mean, how we broadcast, like there's WCC TV. Has anybody ever seen that? Right?
No,
it's not a knock. It's just, I'm just talking real here. You know what I mean? And it's never thumbing our nose at other programs. Those are beautiful institutions, beautiful schools, great academics. Like they're awesome universities. They really are. Like you go down to Santa Clara's campus and walk around, Pepperdine's, you just go down to like ours.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go to any of them, you're like, wow, this is so pretty. You know what I mean? Like Jesuit, private, safe. You know what I mean? You just check a lot of boxes. Like something you want your kid to go to. It's like, oh my God. But they don't care about his athletics as much as we do, or basketball in general.
Right.
So at some point you have to grow or you die. And that doesn't mean our brand would just disappear if we didn't make this move, but you have to get into the same neighborhood as everybody else. And what's the term? I've heard people say it. You don't have to have the biggest house in the neighborhood, but you want to be in the neighborhood. That's fine.
Yeah.
We're not going to have the biggest house. We never will. And it's not like we're scraping pennies together, but like when you're competing against just like a Texas, and you could just go down all these massive schools, and I'm talking just basketball, it makes it harder long term.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? That's a real thing for us to make sure we're navigating ourselves into the right direction. And I think joining the Pac-12 was the right move. Now, am I going to be sad that in general, if I'm still calling games, that I don't get to go to LA and Portland and San Diego during January? Heck yeah, man. It's the best travel schedule on the planet. It is for college athletics. It really is. Like the West Coast Conference, like pretty good. But again, some of these WCC schools just don't have the same ilk for sports.
Yeah.
They just don't. If a great example is Pepperdine, awesome institution, Malibu. I don't know if you've never been there. People, you go there, it's like the coolest campus you've ever seen. Like it's overlooking Malibu. Like you're just like, oh my God. Their gym looks exactly the same from like 30 years ago. Exactly the same. Maybe there's some seat backs and that's about it. You literally walk to the locker room by the concession stand, and it's a big foyer. Like anybody, like in years past, they didn't even put like ropes up. Like a fan could just walk up to you and punch you if they wanted to. And I thought it would happen.
Right.
But it's just like, you're kind of like, this is real. Like me and Huddy at that game were in the top bracket behind like a camera, and they had like no electricity up there. Like we're like, we have to plug our stuff in. They're like, oh, like for real. Like it's just, they don't,
Yeah.
And that's just kind of an example of some of the WCC schools. Devil's advocate, if you're talking about them, they go, well, it's 70 plus a year to go here. It's really hard to get in. We're at capacity or whatever. We're doing pretty good. Like, who gives a blank about sports? And they're right too, right? You know what I mean? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we just got to a point that I think we had to grow. And like I said, die, it might be the right term. You have to refresh your brand. And part of that is refreshing your brand is going to a bigger entity. Now, is it going to be harder to win the conference? Absolutely. Boise State's good. Leon Rice, he's been in the NCAA tournament the last 2 years. Good team. He's got a local kid, Tyson Degehart, fantastic player. San Diego State's been good. They went to a championship game 2 years ago, right? Really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Colorado State was good last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another good team. Wazoo is always in the mix of, I think they go, and it's not a knock, but they go in waves.
Yeah.
But they're usually competitive. Kyle Smith was good. And then David Riley, who used to be at Eastern, I think will take the reins and having a solidified conference again will help him recruiting wise.
Yeah.
They're always solid. Oregon State hasn't been great, but it's still a big school. Maybe they'll be great. Who else am I missing? From
Fresno State.
Fresno State. I've had success in the past. I don't know how they've been recently. But it's going to be harder to win that league. But it's going to be way more fun home games.
Definitely, it's going to be so. I mean, it's also cool to have a much more natural rival with WSU. Like 100%. That's so like, it's a drive away for Gonzaga fans.
Yep.
Same for WSU fans, and
it's going to be wild.
It's going to be,
and we're playing them this year already.
Yeah,
they joined the WCC schedule wise, and so it's like the rivalry is going to begin. But it's going to be fun to see because I know everybody knows WSU fans, and they're not everybody's, but kind of your de facto football team here. Yeah, like when they're fun, it's cool. Yeah, we're like cool WSU, like they're 8-4, 9-3. Yeah, throw it 70 times. I love it. It's kind of cool. but I'm not like ever going to wear a WSU shirt.
Right.
And then so I think the same thing with some diehard WSUs are like, yeah, Gonzaga's good, but like they're never going to like be like, go Zags. Now they can actually play each other and they can be like, F you, man.
Yeah, exactly.
In a friendly way. So I think that's cool. Losing the St. Mary's rivalry that sucks because it's been a great rivalry. Obviously, you know, if you put the head-to-heads, I haven't dominated it, but we have the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But what they've done down there for years is tremendous, and I've talked about that at previous episodes and previous seasons. That it's our programs were similar more than people think. You get what I'm saying? Like how we built it and type of kids, and then you know at the start resources were slim, and we kind of you kind of make something out of nothing, you know what I mean, and then really get something going. So I've always had a great respect for Randy Bennett, but that's gonna suck because I think those games are fun and it's a legitimate rivalry, a respectful one.
Yeah,
you know, it's never anything crazy, but it's contentious, and any team can win, and their style is just completely opposite of ours, and that stuff's fun to watch.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be enjoyable. Maybe we play them in a neutral every once in a while. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I was going to say like I don't really. I see us like playing them like every once in a while, but I wouldn't imagine we'd do like a home and home with them. No. It doesn't make much sense.
No, I think we would maybe do all right, you guys can come to Seattle and then we'll go to where the Warriors play or something like, and let's split the revenue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also it's like, we just beat the crap out of each other for 30 years. Like, do we want to play each other again? Like sometimes it's nice to take a break. Also, it'll be curious playing Boise State, just Leon Rice.
Yeah.
Your friends. And
definitely.
You know how many times I've talked about that? Don't want to play your buddies.
Oh, yeah.
And it could happen in Atlantis.
Yeah, totally.
With Tommy Lloyd.
Yep.
And if they put us on opposite sides.
Yeah.
So that would be crazy.
That would be awesome.
But just overall, I think this move makes sense. And I'm not just saying it because I'm part of the deal. Just revenue wise, TV rights deal and that stuff hasn't even been finalized, but it's just going to give us a better chance to make more revenue, to cover other sports and to cover basketball. It's just the real thing, man. And I think people need to get over it. It's greed. It's not greed, man. It's solvency, man.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we don't have resources, but every year you have to come up with them. It's nice to just get a check and then go, okay, we're starting from this baseline. Doesn't mean we don't have to raise money, whatever, but we have a baseline. Then it changes the landscape too on the girls basketball side too. It's just a lot of different moving parts. Girls hoops has been terrific the last, Lisa Fortier has done great for the last decade plus, and Kelly before her. And so it changed a lot of sports for Gonzaga in general, not just hoops.
I was going to make that point just because like we think about it from the men's basketball standpoint, like, oh, this doesn't change much, or maybe it doesn't change as much as leaving the WCC, but like all the other sports, it's humongous for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm curious to see how it affects like soccer, and then baseball.
Baseball.
Like it's like, well, how does that change? Because I think in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've been solid at baseball, but almost getting to the World Series and making the super regionals. I don't even know how it kind of works, but like we're always like in the playoffs.
Close, yeah.
But now like playing bigger programs, what does that look like? Do we compete? I have no clue. It's just my outside casual looking in. So that'll change. But again, I think this is a great move. It's going to be fun. It's going to create new rivalries. It's going to be different going to this. Some of those stadiums though, man, they're going to be tough places to play, man. Especially when we're coming to town, they're probably going to almost sell out.
Yeah.
In San Diego State, it's going to be tough. We got killed there. I think it was like 20. It was that team with Rui and Norvell, and I don't think BC was the year before BC. Remember we got lost by like 20 down there.
Yeah.
I remember that flight back was a fun one where I was traveling with the team, and that was an interesting, quiet one. I was just not laughing, but it's funny watching Fuey get all worked up and how mad he gets. And we played so bad and just got boat raced out of the gym. Like, and they have a cool arena. It's kind of a old in a good way.
Yeah.
It's like stacked and it's just old school, like on top of you. And like, we got out there and was like, oh, this might be a bad one tonight. Like it was bad.
Every year we've before the regular season, getting the WCC, we've always talked about it's not very competitive and it doesn't prepare us for the tournament. Does that help going to the Pac-12? Does that help change that a little bit?
I don't know, man. I'll be honest. Like I've talked about this before. It's always weird hearing that.
Right.
If you played in a better conference, like, well, we've been to 8 straight Sweet 16s.
Yeah.
Two championship games. How many Elite Eights? Probably 4 in that, right? Probably 4.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, well, where's that? What do you mean? Like, and so I get maybe that is a fair logical argument. Not saying it's not, but I'm always like, if we were getting bounced out because all of a sudden we just ran into a buzzsaw and we couldn't beat a mid-tier big, quote unquote, big conference team, then I'd get it.
Right.
But we don't.
We don't.
I don't. So I just, that narrative is always weird to me. I think it's just it's an old tired narrative. Is more what I'm trying to. It's just tired. It's just a tired argument. Like, well, if they played in the ACC, I'm like, ACC wasn't very good this year.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
no
that's
offense.
true.
And then you go, okay. We talked about the Big 12 earlier. Okay, we played in the Big 12. We want to, maybe we have a down year, air quotes again, and we go 11-5, and we finish 3rd in the Big 12.
Yeah, and
we get a 5 seed or whatever. Was that better for us? And then we have to play somebody really hard and we lose. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so what is I don't understand the arguments and the thought process behind that. And again, I think it's just a tired argument from outside looking in, casuals that, like when we lost to Purdue. Yeah, if they played, it was like the team was in the national championship. And the year before we lost to UConn, who won the national championship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're getting bounced by teams that are, perceived not to be as strong as us. So I don't know. I think just overall the Pac-12 is going to be fun. They still have to find, I believe it's 1 full-time football program for it to be legit. I'm sure they will. The stuff I've read, this is just complete conjecture, and I know we're not a football school, but it matters for the conference. I think Memphis is one people are considering, which is a weird fit, but there's a bunch of weird fits now. I mean, Cal's in the ACC, you know what I mean? Like you can just go down the road. But I think Memphis, there was a weird stat, and don't like completely quote me on it, but it's like the largest university, like revenue wise, in a big city without a Power 5 or something along those lines. So like it makes sense. Like they're usually pretty solid at football, and then they're usually pretty solid at basketball, and then they have a legitimate fan base. And then it gives you another time slot. I know that sounds funny, but time slots matter when you're doing football for TV. That's what people don't understand. Like the Big Ten now has, I think, 4 or 3 time slots, so a game in every single time slot. Yeah, that's a real thing. Same with same with the Big 12. Blah blah blah. That's what these commissioners look for. Like our conference is on network television all day Saturday, from 10 to 10 at 10 Eastern, you know what I mean? Like literally on all day. That's a real thing.
Totally.
And for advertising. So I'll be curious if Memphis, I'm trying to think of the other schools. I think San Jose State was the other, or Sacramento State. Sacramento State is making a jump for it to join. It's obviously got to be a football school. So there's not very many left on the West Coast.
No, there's not. Someone mentioned this to me and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like if Stanford and Cal would have just waited. I know. Like they would make so much sense to be in this new Pac-12.
I wonder if there's outs, if they have an out. I doubt it though. They just signed a deal. You know what I mean? It's not like you can just leave in 3 years. Like, no, you're a 10-year deal.
Yeah. It's this so weird seeing them in the ACC.
It's odd. It's gonna be a little bit weird at start. I mean, we got to talk about this too. Like Utah State's good at basketball.
Yeah,
that's gonna be a hard place to play. Like you think going to BYU is tough. It's the same type of atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? High elevation and a lot of excited people that are loud. That's gonna be another. So I think it's great. I'm excited for it, honestly, and that's just not just me saying it because they switched. I would tell you the honest truth. If I thought it was a bad thing for the university, I think it's terrific. You got to refresh your brand a little bit. Gonzaga just resat the building. with the season tickets, I think it was terrific. I think it should have happened every 5 years. A lot of universities do that. So you go and rebuy your tickets, your season tickets, and you can kind of reselect, raises revenue, and it brings more excitement and people in. I know the old school guys probably be pissed at me for saying that, but sometimes when you look at when we're playing the San Diegos and the LMUs or whatever, and there's a bunch of empty seats, not a ton, but just you see enough. Well, why aren't you at the game? Well, the game's boring. Well, now there's going to be better games. Who wants these seats? Write a check. That's how it works, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's wise that they finally did it. I know they've not wanted to hurt people's feelings, and understandably, a lot of loyal fans, because that's one thing Gonzaga has always been great about, is understanding the community's a big part of this. You know how small we are considering, and the rise that we've had. But at some point, you have to refresh everything, and I think that was part of it. And so a lot of new things coming on the horizon, but 2 more years of the WCC, so we got to focus on that. But that was obviously the biggest news, Pac-12 deal, and I think I just think it's great. I think it's probably going to be the Pac-8 or Pac-9, or I might just go back to the old Pac-10.
Right.
Just
took me forever to start saying Pac-12.
Pac-12, I know. Same here. Like I was like Pac-10. No, it's not. Like I think all the announcers had to re-say it and stuff, but I think it's just terrific, and it's going to create, like you mentioned, new rivalries, and then just the revenue, man. And again, I can't say it enough, and people listening can disagree with me. It's not greed, it's solvency. Yes, there is some greed naturally in everything that we do in the United States. It's a capitalist society, right? You got to make money, right? But it's not just rubbing their heads together like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons. Just make as much money as we can. It's like, you got to pay for the other stuff.
Right. I mean, I also think it's just like legacy. Like it's just, I mean, WCC is great. It fit a need for a really long time, but like it only makes sense for Gonzaga to grow and to get into a bigger conference, even though it doesn't seem like we're going to, like, it's kind of weird because it's like no one's there right now, but like it's just going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Pac-12, it is one of the oldest conferences in the country. So like it makes complete sense.
Yeah. And hats off to Wazoo, and now they're calling themselves Wazoo again, which is weird. Remember they couldn't say it for a while. You couldn't say it
because it was a drinking school thing.
Now they on their games, it's like Wazoo is like, cool, yeah, that's what they are, man. And then Oregon State, but kudos to them for holding on and just be like, okay, hey, let's figure this out. Let's get some more teams, and they've made it happen. And because it was real scary for those 2 programs, especially for football for a while. I was like, whoa, but again, exciting stuff around the horizon. I think this is gonna be a terrific year. A lot of upside, a lot of new players, a lot of things to look forward to. Personnel. Next episode, we're gonna cover schedule. Potential wins and losses. After one of the what's the word of my exhibition game? Excuse me. I'll start talking about concretely where I think guys will play. So I got to see more.
Yeah.
I'm just, a lot of this is just conjecture, and I hate doing that, but it is. I'm like, okay, this guy looks pretty good. Oh, that guy looks pretty good.
Right.
Oh crap. There's 4 guys in one spot. What do you do? You know what I mean? Like it's a real, not issue, but it's a real good problem to have. We'll talk about that. And then, once we get into the meat of the season, we'll, continue doing the recaps. I'll talk about games coming up, and then I'll try to mix in some more interviews this year. I'm trying to get some of the senior guys after the season. I think that'd be a positive thing for all the listeners. I'd like doing that. Get Ben Gregg and some of those guys in here and just pick the brain. Nolan Hickman, guys
for sure,
been here for
100%.
4 years, because it's always fun to hear different perspectives and stories and things behind the scenes that I don't think some of the other media outlets are going to get, just because everybody has a wall up when you talk to certain media people.
Totally.
Not in a good way, but I was the same way. But I've been around the program. They trust me a little bit, so I can get some get some stuff out of them that other guys can't. Yeah, thanks for listening to the first episode, season 4, presented by McGillivray Environmental. Keep listening.
Graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing I'ma drink is a Rainier beer. I ain't no lush, shut up, hush. This is how I zone out. I'ma take this check, put it on me. I'm a much better boss than an employee. Just cause you got time, don't waste time. It's about time, feel the sunshine. You got time, but don't waste time. It's go time.
Podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe. Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spocast.